The slap resounded through the Galactic Council chamber like a thunderclap, alien dignitaries gaping in disbelief as a mere human struck the Daxamite king. Ralph Rice stood tall before King Keed, his palms stinging from the blow, adrenaline surging through his veins. He had endured the king's barrage of insults in silence, fists clenched as Keed disparaged Earth's primitive culture, questioning humanity's right to a seat among the stars. Rice met Keed's shocked glare, his voice steady as he declared, "Humanity will not be belittled or cowed. We have earned our place in this council, and we demand respect." Daxamite guards swarmed the podium, energy pikes crackling as they wrenched Rice's arms behind his back. He didn't resist, chin held high as the guards hauled him away. Whispers raced through the chamber, a mix of outrage and grudging admiration. Some saw Rice's actions as a fool's gambit, a reckless breach of protocol. Others viewed it as a long overdue challenge to the smug superiority of the galaxy's ruling species. In the coming days, Rice would face judgment before the Council, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. Tensions between humans and Daxamites threatened to explode into open conflict, ancient prejudices and simmering resentments rising to the surface. Yet as he was led to a holding cell deep within the megastation, Rice felt a flicker of hope amid the uncertainty. He had struck a blow for humanity, showing the galaxy that Terrans would not meekly submit to the whims of their supposed betters. Come what may, Earth would fight for its future, even if that future was forever changed by Rice's act of defiance. In the days following Rice's imprisonment, the fragile peace between Earth and Daxam teetered on a razor's edge. Earth's delegation demanded Rice's release, insisting that his actions were a justifiable response to King Keed's provocations. The Daxamites, however, called for harsh punishment, determined to make an example of the human who dared to lay hands on their sovereign. Amidst this turmoil, Princess Zara found herself increasingly troubled by her father's intransigence. She had always been the king's most trusted advisor, a prodigy whose intellect and insight far outstripped her years. Yet as she studied the fracas in the council chamber, Zara couldn't shake the sense that something didn't add up. Defying her father's orders to stay clear of the matter, Zara launched her own quiet investigation. She pored over security feeds, analyzed diplomatic communiques, and even sliced into classified databases, her unease growing with each new discovery. Patterns began to emerge. Discrepancies in the official record, curious gaps in the surveillance archives, whispers of covert meetings between certain delegates and unnamed outside parties. The evidence was fragmentary, but it pointed to a troubling conclusion. Someone was working behind the scenes to sabotage human-Daxamite relations, to poison the well of diplomacy and drive the two peoples toward conflict. But who and to what end? Zara needed answers, and she suspected that the one man who might have them was languishing in a cell not far from her quarters. Slipping away from her guards, Zara made her way to the high-security wing where Rice was being held. She was taking a great risk, she knew, but her thirst for the truth outweighed her fear of her father's wrath. Rice was shocked to see the Daxamite princess standing outside his cell, her face a mix of dedication and trepidation. "What do you want?" he asked warily, rising from his cot. "To understand," Zara said, her voice low, "something's not right here, and I think you might be the key to unraveling this knot." Rice listened as Zara laid out what she had learned, his skepticism gradually giving way to a grudging respect for her deductive skills. He had assumed all Daxamites were cut from the same cloth as Keed, but perhaps he had been too quick to judge. "So what now?" he asked when she had finished. "Now," Zara said, "we find the truth, whatever it takes. My father is too blinded by hatred to see that he's being manipulated. But if we can expose the real culprits, force the council to confront the facts—" She trailed off, the enormity of the task sinking in. Rice studied her for a long moment, seeing in her eyes the same fierce grit he felt burning in his own heart. "All right," he said at last, "I'm in. Where do we start?" Just then, alarms began to blare throughout the cell block. Zara tensed, glancing over her shoulder at the sound of pounding footsteps. "That's our cue," she said, keying open Rice's cell with a code she had filched from the warden's office. "We need to get you out of here. Someplace safe where we can plan our next move." Rice hesitated for only a moment before following Zara out into the corridor. He still wasn't entirely sure he could trust the Daxamite princess, but right now she was the only ally he had in a station full of enemies. Together they raced through the labyrinthine passageways of the megastation, evading security patrols and ducking surveillance drones. Zara seemed to know every backdoor and maintenance shaft, guiding them steadily toward the docks where a ship was waiting to spirit them away to the lawless fringes of the galaxy. As they prepared to make their final dash for freedom, Rice paused, looking back at the gleaming spires of Concordia. His life had taken a turn he never could have imagined, but he knew there could be no going back now. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on, side by side with his unlikely partner in truth. The sleek shuttle cut through the inky blackness of space, leaving behind the glittering spires of Concordia. In the cramped cockpit, Ralph Rice studied the unfamiliar controls, his fingers dancing across holographic displays as he plotted their course to Zephyr Prime. Beside him, Princess Zara pored over data files, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The temple should be located in the northern hemisphere," she murmured, eyes never leaving the screen. "But these readings, the jungle's grown over everything. It won't be easy to find." Rice nodded, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "When has anything about this been easy?" As they entered Zephyr Prime's atmosphere, the shuttle bucked and shuddered. Dense, violet-tinged clouds parted to reveal a sprawling canopy of alien vegetation. Massive trees with spiraling trunks stretched towards the sky, their leaves shimmering with an almost metallic sheen. "There," Zara pointed to a small clearing. "That's our best shot for landing." Rice guided the craft down, wincing as branches scraped against the hull. They touched down with a bone-jarring thud, the clearing barely large enough to accommodate them. As they exited the shuttle, the air hit them like a wall, hot, humid, and thick with the pungent scent of alien flora. Strange cries echoed through the forest, sending a chill down Rice's spine despite the oppressive heat. "We should move quickly," Zara said, checking the charge on her plasma pistol. "We're not the only ones after the prophecy." They set off into the jungle, hacking through dense undergrowth with vibro machetes. Rice found himself constantly on edge, every rustle of leaves setting his nerves jangling. More than once he could have sworn he caught glimpses of slithering shapes in the corner of his eye, only to find nothing when he turned to look. After hours of grueling progress, they emerged into a vast clearing. Before them stood the crumbling remains of an impossibly ancient structure, weathered stone blocks covered in vines and moss, yet still unmistakably the work of intelligent hands. "The temple," Zara breathed, eyes wide with wonder. As they approached the entrance, a distant whine cut through the air. Rice's head snapped up, scanning the sky. "Incoming!" A sleek black craft swooped low over the treetops, disgorging a squad of armored figures. At their head strode a towering Daxamite, his scarred face twisted in a cruel grin. "Well, well," he called out, voice dripping with malice. "The princess and her pet human. I am Kalen Vox, and I'm afraid your little adventure ends here." Rice tensed, ready to run, but something held him in place. A strange calm washed over him, the world seeming to slow down. He could sense the mercenaries' positions, could almost taste their intentions on the air. Without conscious thought, he grabbed Zara and dove to the side. A fraction of a second later, the spot where they'd been standing erupted in a hail of energy bolts. "Rice!" Zara gasped as they scrambled for cover. "How did you—" "I don't know," he panted, heart racing. "I just felt it coming." Zara's eyes widened in realization. "The prophecy, Rice, I think you're—" Her words were cut off as another barrage of fire peppered their position. Rice's mind raced, analyzing angles and trajectories with inhuman speed. He pointed to a half-collapsed section of wall. "There, on my mark." They sprinted for the new cover, Rice guiding them with uncanny precision through gaps in the mercenaries' field of fire. As they dove behind the ancient stones, Zara stared at him in amazement. "You're awakening," she said. "The human from the prophecy, it's you." Before Rice could process this revelation, A deafening explosion rocked the temple grounds. Vox and his team were advancing, using heavy weapons to systematically destroy their cover. "We need to get inside," Rice growled, his newfound abilities screaming warnings of impending danger. "Whatever's in there, they can't be allowed to get their hands on it." Zara nodded, drive etched on her face. "I'll cover you. Go!" As she laid down suppressing fire with her pistol, Rice sprinted for the temple entrance. Energy bolts sizzled past him, close enough to singe his hair, but he moved with preternatural grace, evading each blast. He skidded to a halt before a massive stone door, covered in intricate carvings. Without thinking, he pressed his palm against the cool surface. Lines of blue energy spiderwebbed out from his touch, and with a grinding of ancient gears, the door slowly swung open. "Zara," he called, "now!" The princess turned and ran, ducking and weaving through the hail of fire. Rice reached out, guiding her with his mind, showing her where to step, when to dodge. They tumbled through the doorway together as another explosion shook the ground. The massive stone slab slammed shut behind them, plunging them into darkness. For a moment they lay there, panting in the inky blackness. Then, one by one, lines of soft blue light began to glow along the walls and floor, illuminating a vast chamber filled with alien technology and ancient inscriptions. "By the gods," Zara whispered, climbing to her feet. "It's all true." Rice stood slowly, his head swimming with new sensations and abilities he was only beginning to understand. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw row upon row of holographic displays, each showing fragments of text and star charts. "The prophecy," he said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "It's here." Outside they could hear Vox and his men trying to breach the door, but for now they were safe. Rice and Zara shared a look of grit, knowing that what they discovered here could change the hope of the universe. With trembling hands, Rice reached out to activate the nearest console, prepared to uncover the truth that had been hidden for millennia. Millennia. As his fingers brushed the alien interface, a surge of energy coursed through him. Images flooded his mind, star charts, alien languages, and glimpses of a vast cosmic tapestry. "Rice?" Zara's voice cut through the flood of information. "What do you see?" He blinked, struggling to process the torrent of data. "It's overwhelming, but I think I understand now. The prophecy, the conspiracy, it's all connected." A thunderous boom echoed through the chamber as Vox and his men redoubled their efforts to breach the door. Rice knew they were running out of time. "We need to get this information out," he said, his hands flying over the controls with newfound expertise. "But not just to a few people. The whole galaxy needs to know." Zara nodded, her eyes gleaming with perseverance. "I know just the people to help us. Outcasts, rebels, those who've seen through the Council's lies. If we can reach them, we can build an army," Rice finished, a plan already forming in his mind. Over the next few weeks, as they evaded Vox's forces and the Council's official search parties, Rice and Zara worked tirelessly. They sent encrypted messages to contacts on a dozen worlds, each carefully vetted by Zara's network of informants and Rice's burgeoning psionic abilities. They met in secret with leaders from Pixis, a world of master engineers whose innovations had been stifled by the Council's tech embargoes. On Harricon, they found allies among the warrior clans, long marginalized by the galactic elite. The crystal cities of Vega yielded unlikely support from a cabal of disillusioned bureaucrats, tired of the corruption they witnessed daily. With each new ally, their coalition grew stronger. Ships gathered in the shadows of nebulae and asteroid fields, a ragtag armada united by a common purpose. As their force neared completion, an unexpected message reached them. General Theron, one of King Kaid's most trusted advisors, wished to defect. He claimed to have damning evidence of the king's involvement in the anti-human conspiracy. "It could be a trap," Zara warned as they prepared to meet Theron at a neutral location. Rice nodded, his senses stretched to their limit. "Maybe, but if he's telling the truth, this could be the key to everything." The rendezvous went smoothly, Theron's sincerity confirmed by both Rice's abilities and the wealth of data he provided. With this final piece in place, they were ready to make their move. The Allied fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Concordia, a jam-packed array of ships from a dozen different worlds. Alarms blared across the mega station as the Council's security forces scrambled to respond. On the bridge of the flagship, Rice closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. He could sense the patterns of energy, the ebb and flow of data through Concordia's systems. With a thought, he scrambled targeting systems, rerouted power flows, and sowed chaos among the defenders. "Now," he called, and the fleet surged forward. Zara coordinated the assault, her tactical brilliance shining as she directed their disparate forces with precision. Pixian EMP devices disabled entire sectors of the station's defenses. Heracon boarding parties secured key junctions and computer nodes. Vegan infiltrators uploaded viruses that turned the Council's own systems against them. As they fought their way toward the Central Council chambers, Rice felt a familiar presence. King Kide himself had taken the field, rallying loyalist forces to make a final stand. The two groups clashed in a massive atrium, energy weapons sizzling through the air. Rice moved with fluid grace, his precognitive abilities allowing him to dance through the storm of fire. Beside him, Zara fought with the ferocity of her warrior ancestors, her plasma pistol cutting down foe after foe. Suddenly, the crowd parted. Cade stood before them, his ornate armor scorched and dented. The Daxamite King's eyes blazed with hatred as he raised a massive energy cannon. "You've ruined everything," he snarled, taking aim at Rice. Time seemed to slow. Rice felt the buildup of power, saw the targeting systems lock onto him. Without conscious thought, he threw up a psionic barrier. The blast hit him full force, but instead of disintegrating him, it splashed harmlessly against an invisible shield. Keed's eyes widened in shock and fear. In that moment of distraction, Zara struck. Her voice rang out, clear and commanding. "By the ancient laws of Daxam, I, Princess Zara, invoke the right of succession. King Kide has betrayed our people and the principles of the Galactic Council. I strip him of his authority and claim leadership of the Daxamite people." A ripple of shock passed through the assembled forces. For a breathless moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the Daxamite soldiers lowered their weapons. Kide, his face a mask of impotent rage, found himself suddenly alone. With the king's fall, the remaining resistance crumbled. Rice, Zara, and their allies swept into the council chambers, where they found the true architects of the conspiracy, a cabal of merchants, military leaders, and entrenched bureaucrats attempting to seize control. Caught off guard by the sudden assault, the conspirators were quickly subdued. As the dust settled, Rice stepped forward, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "Members of the Galactic Council," he began, his words backed by the weight of newfound authority, "we stand at a crossroads. For too long, corruption and self-interest have guided the decisions made in this room. Today, we have a chance to change that." He laid out the evidence they had gathered, the secret deals, the manipulated data, the efforts to keep humanity isolated and weak. Theron's testimony proved particularly damning, exposing the depths of Keed's involvement. As he spoke, Rice could feel the mood of the room shifting. Shock gave way to anger, then to a growing sense of possibility. When he finished, a heavy silence fell over the chamber. Then, slowly at first, but with growing enthusiasm, voices of support began to rise. Delegates from a dozen worlds stood to denounce the old guard and pledge themselves to a new era of cooperation. Zara stepped forward, her face glowing with pride and drive. "I nominate Ralph Rice as Earth's permanent ambassador to the Galactic Council. Let his insight and courage guide us into a new age of understanding between our peoples." A cheer went up from their allies, soon joined by many of the council members themselves. Rice felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, but also a profound sense of hope. As the council began the process of reorganizing, Rice found a quiet moment with Zara. "We did it," he said, still somewhat in awe of all that had transpired. She smiled, squeezing his hand. "We've made a start, but there's still so much work to be done." Rice nodded, his mind already racing with plans and possibilities. The galaxy was changing, and humanity would play a vital role in shaping its future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. The euphoria of victory was short-lived. As Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Galactic Council, Rice found himself thrust into a political quagmire. The council chambers, once a battleground of energy weapons and psionic displays, now echoed with heated debates and thinly veiled threats. "The humans cannot be trusted with such influence," growled Ambassador Krell, his scaled skin flushing an angry orange. "They are barely out of their stellar cradle." Rice leaned forward, his voice steady. "And yet, we've already proven our worth. The galaxy needs fresh perspectives, not entrenched prejudices." But for every ally gained, another counselor seemed to harden against him. Rice's days blurred into an endless series of negotiations, compromise, and careful maneuvering. Zara faced her own struggles on Daxam. The royal palace, once her childhood home, now felt like hostile territory. General Dravis, a titan of a man with cybernetic enhancements glinting at his temples, led the opposition. "A child cannot lead us," Dravis proclaimed to a gathering of military officials, "especially one who consorts with lesser species." Zara's fists clenched at her sides, but she kept her voice level. "My father's crimes do not negate the ancient laws of succession. I am your rightful sovereign." The room crackled with tension. Zara could feel the weight of 1,000 years of tradition bearing down on her. Weeks passed in uneasy stalemate. Then, during a diplomatic summit on Daxam's largest moon, chaos erupted. Rice and Zara were deep in conversation with the Pixian ambassador when the first explosion rocked the compound. Alarms blared as smoke filled the corridors. "It's Dravis," Zara shouted over the din. "He's making his move." They sprinted through the labyrinthine halls, energy bolts sizzling past them. Rice's psionic senses screamed warnings, allowing them to dodge and weave through the assault. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with a squad of Dravis's cybernetically enhanced soldiers. Before Rice could raise a psionic shield, Zara had already drawn her sidearm. 3 precise shots dropped the lead attackers. "This way," she called, gesturing to a maintenance hatch. They crawled through service tunnels, the sounds of battle echoing all around them. Finally, they emerged in a small hangar bay. A sleek shuttle waited, its engines already humming to life. "Auda's people," Zara explained as they sprinted aboard. "She's an old friend. We can trust her." The shuttle blasted free of the moon's artificial atmosphere, banking hard to avoid the barrage of defensive fire. Rice clutched the armrests, his mind racing. Where could they go? The entire sector would soon be hunting them. Zara punched coordinates into the nav computer. "I know a place," she said grimly, "but you're not going to like it." Days later, their battered shuttle limped into an asteroid field on the very edge of charted space. Massive chunks of rock and ice drifted in the void, creating a treacherous maze. "There," Zara pointed, a collection of ships unlike anything Rice had ever seen came into view. They were cobbled together from scavenged parts, a nomadic fleet of outcasts and wanderers. "The Drift," Zara explained, "home to those who've rejected the politics of the core worlds." As they docked with the lead vessel, Rice felt a strange tingling at the base of his skull. His psionic senses were picking up something, a faint echo, maddeningly familiar yet impossible to place. A grizzled woman with an electronic eyepiece greeted them. "Welcome aboard the Starvoid, Your Majesties," she said with a mocking bow. "I'm Captain Lydra. You're lucky we owed the princess a favor." Over the next few days, Rice and Zara integrated themselves into the Nomad fleet's rhythms. They learned of the constant struggle for resources, the delicate dance of alliances between ships. But always that psychic echo nagged at Rice. "There are stories," Lydra told them one night over a meal of synthesized protein, "of a place out in the deep black. They say it's where the first psionics came from." Rice leaned forward, his food forgotten. "Tell me more." Lydra's cybernetic eye whirred as she focused on him. "It's just spacer legend, a great ship, older than our civilizations. But the way you're looking at me, you feel it, don't you?" Before Rice could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lidra's comm crackled to life. "Captain!" a panicked voice shouted. "We've got incoming! It's a Daxamite dreadnought!" Zara's face paled. "Dravis," she whispered. "He's found us." As the Nomad fleet scattered, Rice stared out the view screen at the massive warship bearing down on them. He could feel the pressure building in his mind, the psionic energy begging to be released. But he hesitated, knowing that to truly master this power, he would need guidance. The legend of the Ark ship beckoned, promising answers and the key to unlocking his full potential. But first, they had to survive this attack. Rice closed his eyes, reaching out with his thoughts. He could sense the dreadnought's systems, the minds of its crew. With a deep breath, he prepared to push his abilities further than ever before.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.